I want to kind of get in some way, in some context, into the history of the Texas power grid because this isn't just something that started today. And so, if people who are going to understand this a little bit more, who want to take that avenue, they should know certain things about that. So, like, I'm reading from let me see, Texas Tribune, who did like a lot of really good reporting on this as it was happening. So shout out to them. But the Texas Interconnected System, which for a long time was actually operated by two discrete entities, had a certain priority, staying out of the reach of federal regulators. In 1935, FDR signed the Federal Power Act, which charged the Federal Power Commission with overseeing interstate electricity sales. By not crossing state lines, Texas's utilities avoided being subjected to federal rules. Quote, freedom from federal regulation was a cherished goal, more so because Texas had no regulation until the 1970s, writes Richard Cudahy in a 1995 article. ERCOT was formed in 1970 in the wake of a major blackout in the Northeast in November 1965, and it was tasked with managing grid reliability in accordance with national standards. The agency had assumed additional responsibilities following further electric deregulation in Texas a decade ago, and the ERCOT grid remains beyond the jurisdiction of the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, which regulates interstate electric transmission. That's basically all to say that it's been in the history of Texas to have things their own way, do things their own way. Sure, like that's the state. That's what you get to do as a state. But always facing the possibility of wanting to secede. They wanted to make sure they had their own power grid. Okay, so sure, that's fine. Then they chose as a state to deregulate it at pretty much every single turn. And then when there were different mistakes and issues like this, not enough was done. So it just kind of highlights a lot of what Yasmin said. It's like, this isn't just, oh, we're reacting now and this is a freak storm of climate change. It absolutely is like an effect of climate change, and it's probably like things like this are going to get worse. But there were warning signs. There have been warning signs for decades that have been purposely ignored because the Republican Party has an ideology of making government not work. They don't want government to work in any sort of situation. They want everyone's idea of the government to be like going to the Department of Motor Vehicles in their state. They want you to hate it. They want it to be grating. So that way, when they go into the voting booth, you vote for the people who say, we're going to deregulate government. We're going to defund it. We're going to make sure that you pay no taxes. So government can't do anything at all. So that way, all of the buddies of Greg Abbott, and he's really deep in the pocket of the oil and gas industry in Texas, they can get richer. And then situations like this right here, where you have a freak storm that is like knocking out power and infrastructure all across the state, the government just kind of shrugs. And in some states, in some cases, there's that one mayor who said, it's your fault. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Get your own electricity. Make these things yourself. You shouldn't rely on the government to do these things for you and get water to your house and make sure your families are safe. Like, it's just an absolute backwards ideology that has been decades in the making.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear you talk about Texas like that because so I'm originally from the Northeast. I'm from Connecticut. So when I moved here when I was 11, and it was like culture shock moving from New England to Texas, and now I'm like this weird Yankee Texan. It doesn't even make sense. But like just a week or two ago, Texas, like our Texas legislator was working on secession because I don't know, because of Joe Biden or something. And it's like, I feel like there's a million other things he could be worried about right now, but that's what they were doing. The entire state government in Texas is red. The entire thing is like deep, deep, deep oil and gas, conservative Republican red, right? The major cities of Texas are all blue, right? So we have Democratic mayors in Austin, Houston, Dallas, not Fort Worth, San Antonio, El Paso. So there is a lot of disparity between the cities and the rural areas, but of course, we still have a red government. So there's also this role in Texas government called the Texas Railroad Commissioner, which has nothing to do with railroads. It's all energy. They need to rename it because nobody knows what it is, but they're really important. It's a really critical role. And right now it's all oil and gas people. And there was a Democrat who was running for it in the last election, and I really wanted her to win, but there was no way she was going to, because she wanted to move towards more sustainable methods. She wanted to work on reducing fracking and things like that, which needs to happen. And of course, she didn't get elected because Texas is all oil and gas. And at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. And there is some oil and gas company. I think today I was reading about it. They were saying, like, oh yeah, this was really great for business. We made a lot of money off of this because, you know, gas prices are skyrocketing and electric bills are skyrocketing right now. It's all money.
It's all money. Uh, Sean,
Mhm.
you've been a little bit quiet. Do you have anything to say?
It's just hilarious, just listening to a libertarian hellscape that is going on right now because of all the deregulation, everything that's gone on since the 30s. It's funny. I found out about the power grid a couple years ago when I was researching nuclear technologies because something I've always been interested in is renewables, especially nuclear and other stuff. And I saw that Texas had its own power grid. I was like, why the hell do they have their own power grid? I thought everything would be federally regulated. And I looked into it. I go, that's going to be a disaster at some point. And sure enough, it's obviously showing its ugly rear end right now. And yeah, I feel for all the people it's affected, though. I have a bunch of family in Austin. My girlfriend's family is all in El Paso. So luckily in El Paso, it's not bad. In Austin, so some of my family members, they were out of power for about a week. So I saw their stuff on online going like they're having to just scrounge for food and trying to stay warm as much as they can. So I really feel for all the people that have been affected by poor leadership and stupid decisions and things that shouldn't happen, especially in this country. I mean, it's abhorrent and terrible of what's been going on over there.
Yeah, especially just really
Okay.
fast. I gotta say, there's been this one side of the left that I really don't like. That is like, oh well, this is the government you voted for, so this is what you get. And I'm just not going to be the kind of person who like is going to like shame someone or like be even in any kind of way joyous about like the suffering that regular people are going through. Just because it happens to be a Republican red state. I mean, that doesn't even go to the fact that Texas has been gerrymandered to hell by Republicans. It's like another case where, as is the rest of the country, people just aren't motivated to vote because of things like this, because of like the political machinations and people just being disillusioned with politics. So to blame everyday regular people saying, ha, it's their fault for that kind of thing, like that's conservative shit. That's Republican vile shit. Like I'm not gonna tolerate that from like people who supposedly call themselves progressive.
Well, those people are kicked out if they said that. They're out the club.
They probably
That's
listen to Jimmy.
ridiculous.
They probably listen to Jimmy Dore.
And also Connecticut to Houston is also the trajectory of George W. Bush. So
Oh, what? I did not even know that. I had no idea.
You guys have so much in common.
Oh,
great
no.
elite
Yeah.
company there.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.